And for the final rabbi, um, we had a rather nice conversation. And Rabbi Kaplan is, and these are my words, he didn't give this to me. He's dynamic and a creative and innovative rabbi and speaker. You will see this in a couple minutes. He spent 8 years in Southern California working at the Long Beach Hillel, being involved in leading high school and college kids. Um, he is rabbi at Cedar Village currently. He leading rabbi at Cedar Village. He moved to Cincinnati 2 years ago with his family. He is also currently doing a podcast called JewishDrinking.com. He has published a couple books and has three hobbies, which really intrigue me. He's an aficionado of beer, the Talmud, and Star Wars. So I asked Rabbi Kaplan if he has ever been able to relate Star Wars to the Talmud, which would make a fairly significantly interesting discussion, I believe. And interestingly enough, that has just happened recently. He is now, as I said, the director of pastoral care at Cedar Village. And I believe his story of COVID has really taken a different route than most other rabbis, which has really brought this whole idea of involving rabbis in this to a different level. So with that, Rabbi Kaplan.
Thank you so much, Dr. Smith. First of all, that's an incredible, that was an incredible description. I appreciate that. Now I have to live up to it. So yes, just to follow up what Dr. Smith said, back after Mother's Day, I did 12 weeks of Star Wars and Judaism, connecting biblical and Talmudic texts to all 12 theatrically released Star Wars films on Zoom, and recorded them. So they're up somewhere floating around the interwebs as we speak. So as I started, actually this coming Saturday, just 2 days, will mark exactly 9 months since I began my work at Cedar Village. And so I don't know what transpired before the pandemic. People ask me how things changed. I honestly don't know. To be honest, when people tell me how things change, or when they tell me what it was like at Cedar Village, it sounds like a mythological fantasy. It sounds so different than the reality during the pandemic. To be honest, it was really great getting away from my kids after having spent 2 months cooped up inside with them since mid-March. So it was a great escape to get away and start working at Cedar Village. So I mentioned it's been 9 months, right? In 2 days, 9 months. It's really easy to think about my work in trimesters. It's super easy. So the first trimester, as it were, what I would characterize as some sense of optimism. Like we could start to open. In fact, June, we had some assisted living had visitation. They were able to see family. July, we had our first resident who caught COVID and subsequently passed away. So July we were kind of shut down. There weren't any activities, no visitations. August, we had 3 weeks of not only visitation for AL, for the skilled nursing side, we also started to have some programs, and even the assisted living dining room opened up, which was really exciting. After months of having styrofoam meals, they got to see their friends again. Very exciting. And then we had another outbreak in the building. Several people got the virus. The high holiday season, September, October, was really tough on them. It's just, there was no programming. Obviously, COVID was still out and about. And then November, December got worse just because of what was going on in the broader upper Midwest and certainly in Ohio, that it just seemed, it was like really frustrating for me, first of all, to see the residents not able to even really much leave their rooms, and certainly not even to perambulate around the campus. So I felt really tough. I will say, because, and this is something that's carried on throughout the 9 months I've been there, no programming, but heavy on the pastoral needs. They're, for the most part, cooped up in their rooms. They literally can't hang out with their friends, just for compliance reasons with the Ohio Department of Health and other regulatory agencies. They're stuck in their rooms. Unless they have a personal aide to really be there, it's incredibly, it's more isolating than whatever it had been prior to the pandemic. Finally, they start to get some wiggle room. November, December, they can sort of get around, walk around on campus, which is nice. But really, no programming still, no AL dining room. But there was finally signs of hope end of December with the FDA approval of the vaccines. Last month, very exciting. It was a shot of hope, an injection of hope into the facility when we got the Pfizer vaccine administered to all of the residents and staff who wanted. And I'm very excited to say that in the last couple of weeks, we had the first 2 consecutive weeks that we had no new positive results of either residents or staff for the first time since August. It's been literally a half year. We've just had a continual cycle of residents and staff popping up with positive COVID cases inside the building. And it's funny, actually, we at some point we triggered this need that we got not just once a week, but then we had to transition into twice a week testing for COVID. So actually, just this morning, I had my 46th test for COVID. I thought I was getting used to it. It still tickles. It's quite the experience, but it's still. I mean, yes, we did just have another staff member turn up positive because a lot of the staff actually rejected the vaccine. It turns out Cedar Village actually is better than the average in Ohio. The state average, according to Governor DeWine, is 42% of staff at such homes decided to take the vaccine, meaning a majority of staff in these facilities have said no to the vaccine. They don't want to have any part of it. We actually did. I'm very proud to say we had over 60% of the staff accept the vaccine. So 3 out of 5, but we still have 2 out of every 5 staff who have refused to receive the vaccine, and so we're still going to have staff, I'm sure, popping up, running around with COVID. So right now, it's very hopeful. Just as of this week, we have, for the first time since August, so literally a half year, started having some programming. Resident Life has started running programs, and Tuesday we're supposed to have the assisted living dining room opening up. Very exciting, a lot of hope. But so 2 things. One, pastorally, it's been definitely in my early months. I did a lot of meetings with the residents until actually in the fall. At some point, the building administrator told both the Resident Life staff and me that unless you really need to be in a residence room, don't. And so that was it was really tough for the Resident Life team and also my predecessor and I, who were still around, that we really shouldn't be going to their rooms because COVID was still a very real threat with new staff popping up every week, turning up positive, and even residents. We've had a couple of outbreaks where, unfortunately, staff transmitted it to residents. I think the biggest was in December during Hanukkah when it turned out that half of the memory ward got COVID. There were unfortunately, some deaths that resulted from that outbreak. So it just kept popping up from time to time. And yes, we definitely had some deaths from it. I will say, on the pedagogical side, it really forced me to think about doing one of the things that we do. We have a broadcast channel dedicated that we can program whatever we want as long as it's on YouTube. So I've done not only curated content for the residents, but created the content for them. So I've done, ever since July, a weekly Zoom tour portion discussion, which has gotten about 1.5 residents every single week. And I record it, do a little bit of editing, publish it to YouTube. And actually, as of 2021, I've also done some other new things as well, doing a Pirkei Avot series of video essays, also having some local rabbis for a schmooze about the Torah portion, including both Rabbi Smolkin and Scheidel here, other local rabbis. I've done some other ones. I've had some guests talking about Ohio Jewish history. I'm very excited to have Rabbi Samantha Shapra, who did her rabbinic thesis on the history of Jewish long-term care facilities in America. So we did a 2-part series. So all that stuff's on YouTube, and I curate that content over the weekend, plug it in, and it's been really interesting. It's been great. I mean, to be honest, like, a lot of this so far has played into my strengths of both the one-on-one, the pastoral. I mean, just toot my own horn. I'm a phenomenal listener. So that's really played to my strengths and developing those relationships, as well as doing the multimedia publishing and all that, in addition to a weekly Shabbat newsletter. So uh, I do have some anxieties about being in this job, getting to understand it for almost 9 months, and things are changing, but for the good, because I'm very excited to see the spirits picking up. That everybody's been vaccinated, so there's less of a mortal threat knocking on everybody's doors inside the building, and so it's hopeful to start to see what can be done, and people's spirits rising.
Great. Thank you, Rabbi. So
Thank you.
Do you guys get a chance to talk to anybody as they're, I hate to use the word, approaching death in that sense, or the family? I would think that that would be a work into that question.
I'll answer this. People die all the time. They're sort of on their way out, and it's been a really mix. It's been a real mixture. Certainly in the earlier months, it was only in extreme cases that families were allowed in as end of life goes. Now, at least it's been a little bit more lenient, more loose, so families can come in when the dying residents are still kind of with it. So at least they're a little bit more open to talking about that. But they're not so often are families even around when someone passes. It's just it's not the norm. I don't. Maybe Rabbi Stein can speak to that, but it's not like what one sees in the movies. Really, it's just such a different experience.
Terrific. Rabbi Kaplan, what percent of the residents welcomed received the vaccine? I think you may have answered that. Rabbi
Yeah,
Stein,
high degree.
hospital staff received the vaccine.
Yeah, high degree. I mean, it was such a stark contrast. The residents almost, I mean, you could count them on one hand in the entirety of the building, maybe a second hand that rejected the vaccine. The staff, it was a very high degree. And even that, there was a huge campaign to push the staff to accept it. There was definitely a lot of pressure put on them because initially I think it was about 40%, which is close to the state's average, who said yes to the vaccine. So literally a majority of the staff did not want to accept the vaccine, and there was just a lot of peer pressure put on them so we boosted it to past 60%.